Welcome back to Lessons from the Front. Today I'm back in Katong, Singapore for a game of bolt action against a visitor from Australia. Let's head upstairs now to Expedimix, my favorite store in all of Singapore. Right guys, so I've got Richard here. Richard and I know each other we last saw each other about 25 years ago. But tell me about your recent bolt action history.
Oh, thank you, Eugene, and really good to catch up with you again. Well, I've been playing multiple game systems for probably over 40 years, but I was not doing well in tournaments. I was finding I was coming sort of mid-tier. So about 2 years ago, I changed my whole approach and I started studying how the game worked. I started developing a strategy for every mission, and I got a little bit less focused on having historically correct lists and more tournament heavy lists. Don't get me wrong, I love a historical list and I'll play a historical game any day.
Right.
But focused on tournament lists and then just started practicing and watching videos, watching lessons from the front, etc. And it just helped me. Yeah. And then I changed my tactics, practiced a lot, to the point I'd started winning tournaments. I think last year I won 2 and came second in 2 tournaments.
Right, well done.
And my highlight this year was coming second in CanCon, where we had about 50, 60 players in Canberra, and then joining a superb bunch of folk to go and play in England in the World Team Championships. We had 2 teams, A team, B team. Yeah. And there wasn't A and B because one was better. So Aaron led the first team.
Right.
And the other team was led by a chap with his name began with a B.
Right.
So we took the 2 teams, went there, and we broke the Europeans. We came second. It was brilliant.
That's wonderful. That's good to hear. Well done.
Credit to the Germans who won, and then Australia A came second. So that was probably my highlight of my gaming career.
Right.
And I've been lucky. Even last week I was playing Spartan in Perth and managed to win that one as well.
Yeah, well done.
So by learning, practicing, and having a great bunch of people help you, it just allows you to improve your game.
Nice. Well, I look forward this evening to learning from you. I've got a lot to learn. So shall we play?
Let's do that. Thank you, Eugene.
Okay guys, I'm going to take a very quick look at the survey list, and I promise to be brief. 21 order dice, 1,175 points. It was commanded by a 3-man regular company commander, and there were 4 inexperienced single-man platoon commanders. The first platoon was a large rifle platoon, and it consisted of a motorcycle combination squad, a 7-man scout squad that had the infiltrator rule. There were 2 SMG squads, both 5 men, and they also had a Panzerfaust, 1 each for each of those 2 squads. And then there was also some interesting little units like the dog mine team, the ampulette team, and there was a off-table forward observer for artillery, and there was a sniper team. Then the second platoon was pretty much riff-raff. It had 2 inexperienced squads, 2 large squads of inexperienced men, and then they were both green. And then there was also 2 anti-tank rifle teams. And then there were 2 supporting platoons. One was a artillery platoon that had a single 47mm anti-tank gun, and then there was a heavy weapons platoon. It had a inexperienced MMG team, and then it also had a regular medium mortar with a spotter. Our battle unfolded on a 6x4 foot table, with the crew at Expedimix once again delivering a stunning setup, this time plunging us into the shattered ruins of Stalingrad. The scenario was left to the dice, and fate dealt us key positions fought from the long table edges in a meeting engagement. The battlefield was a labyrinth of rubble and broken buildings, which I felt would play into my infantry-heavy horde. Against Rich's leaner, more mobile elite force, I hoped the lack of armor wouldn't matter so much. More on Rich's army later. He'll walk us through his list building system himself. Our scenario required the placing of 5 objectives, and once these were placed, to then choose sides. With hindsight, my choice of the table edge closest to the camera was my first serious blunder. The side I chose contained most of the table's intact buildings, as highlighted here in this photo, whilst Rich's half of the table contained most of the ruins. Furthermore, 3 of the objectives lay in Rich's side of the table, giving him the perfect base from which to attack from. And so by choosing the side closest to the camera, I was effectively shooting myself in the foot, because intact buildings, only allow one unit in at a time. And so by having to move through intact buildings, I was effectively minimizing the number of units I could place or direct towards the three objectives on Richard's side of the table. Richard skillfully positioned his two Marder 3s in the central ruins on his side of the table, their Pak 40s locking down that junction. With HE shells ready, they made the junction building a no-go for my infantry, or so I felt, and it forced my Soviets to funnel left through a single building, thereby slowing my advance on Richard's right. But the threat didn't end there. Those same two guns turned the center into a killing field, making any push towards Richard's three objectives a costly gamble if I was going to come down that central road. On top of that, he had a powerful flanking force waiting off table, able to strike from either end. Not knowing where the hammer would fall and wary of the Marder's firepower, I made my second blunder, spreading my army across the whole front, effectively cutting it into two halves, divided by that death trap Richard had created in the middle. With half my force creeping forward on the right, and some units digging in against a possible flank strike, my hope of taking the closest objective on my left rested on indirect fire. But here came another costly mistake. Oh dear, I had positioned my mortar spotter and forward artillery observer far too close to Richard's table edge, trusting hard cover and the infiltrator rule to keep them safe long enough to call in support. The idea was to pin and slow any squads Richard might bring in from his right. Instead, Richard immediately seized the initiative, his opening moves ruthlessly targeting both teams, wiping them out in turn one, stripping me of my vital indirect fire support before it could even begin. Richard committed hard to his attack on my left, choosing to largely ignore my right. His troops moved with speed through the ruins, unhindered by the restrictions of entering buildings, and this allowed him to secure the central objective before I could even contest it. Once in position, he concentrated his fire on the only unit I had with a real chance of taking that objective: my veteran scout squad. Because the rules limited the number of units inside the building, the scouts were isolated and quickly became the focus of Richard's firepower. In a desperate bid to support these veterans, I risked racing a motorcycle squad straight through the death trap covered by Richard's two Marders. But with both vehicles on ambush, the outcome was all but inevitable. Unless the dice fell wildly in my favor, the riders stood no chance. Richard's concentrated fire crushed them, adding to the pressure on my left. Meanwhile, the constant threat of his flanking reserves forced my hand. I felt compelled to guard both short table edges, tying up much-needed troops in static defense. Under the mounting pins, my veteran scouts needed to pass a morale check to launch an assault across the road to seize the objective. But when I rolled that double six, that dreaded foobar, the test was failed and my scouts broke, fleeing off the nearest table edge. I'll ask Richard to explain both the rules for the ruins and the failed morale check, the foobar test, in part 2 of this video. But the result was decisive. The only unit capable of capturing the third objective was gone. With too little time for my right flank to reposition towards another objective, I conceded the game. I had paid the price for poor terrain assessment at deployment and for splitting my force into two halves. Richard never even needed to bring on his flanking reserves onto the table. Their very threat tied down so many of my units that they dictated the battle as surely as they had fired a shot. Okay, so Richard, we've finally finished our game. Richard absolutely hammered me. And what I found amazing throughout that game, Richard, was how, in spite of me having a much larger force than you, I know I spread myself out too thinly, but in spite of having way more units than you, I always felt outnumbered. How did you do that?
Eugene, probably two ways. One is how I've designed my list,
yeah,
and secondly how I use it.
Right.
So first of all, I design a list over sort of 3 tiers of force. The back line, the units that are going to fire over long distance. The front line, which are the guys who are going to be in your face. and then the guys in the middle that stitch the two together.
Right.
What you faced over the first couple of turns
Yeah.
was the back line and the middle line.
Right.
You hadn't faced my in-your-face assault yet, because
Yeah.
that was coming in on the flank
On the
lines.
flanks, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what did you have then?
So anchoring it were my two Mardas,
Yeah.
which both had the HMGs, Armada 3s, plus the heavy anti-tank guns, plus the little armored car, which is really just my go-to troubleshooter.
Yeah.
But on top of that, I had two anti-tank guns, two light mortars, a 7-man Gabasyaga squad with LMG, a 4-man spar trooper squad to get in your face as an infiltrator,
Yeah.
and then on top of that, I had a 7-man regular squad with an LMG.
Right.
And that was my back line and my middle line.
Okay, so tell me about the front line.
So Eugene, the front line is based around two SDKFZ 250/1s.
Yeah.
One has a veteran officer squadron with 5 SMGs,
Yeah.
and the other one has a veteran grenadier squad with 5 SMGs and a Panzerfaust.
Yeah.
Their job is to outflank and hit you in your weak spot. And they hit you like a storm, because once the two vehicles are on the table, I use a 4-die snap 2 with the lieutenant, and I can pretty much do whatever I want.
All right, Richard. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure playing against someone, guys, who is just so skilled in his abilities and how he thinks and understands this game. It's been a real pleasure to play you.
Eugene, all I could say is thank you. Very kind words. Had a great amount of fun tonight, and I look forward to our next one.
And that wraps up this battle. In the follow-up video, we'll take a closer look at the Fubao rules for vehicles and infantry, and the rules for fighting in ruins. Two areas that aren't always played correctly. Richard will walk us through them in detail, so make sure to check in soon for part 2. In the meantime, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and do drop in a comment. I do like to hear from you. So in the meantime, happy gaming!